Hey there, and welcome to Domain Era, the channel where drama sizzles and revenge burns hotter than ever. If you love jaw-dropping twists, bold characters, and stories that keep you guessing till the end, you're in the right place. Subscribe and dive into gripping tales of betrayal, karma, and ultimate payback. Get ready for unforgettable moments and satisfying endings only on Crazy Pepper. Hit that subscribe button and let the drama begin. You wrecked everything I was. Now watch. Memory what you loved, one shovel at a time, just like you did to me. The knock on my office door came at exactly 3:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. That would split my life into before and after. I remember the time because I'd been staring at the clock, counting minutes until I could escape the suffocating admin building of Millbrook College. The air in the office was stale, heavy with the scent of old coffee and printer toner. "Come in," I called, not looking up from the budget spreadsheet that had been mocking me for hours, its columns of numbers a cruel reminder of my invisible role. In this academic machine, a thin kid with dark hair shuffled in, clutching a backpack like it contained nuclear codes. Miguel Santos, I'd seen him around campus, always on the edges. A scholarship student with sharp eyes and a reputation for knowing things others didn't. He had that look, smart but invisible. "Like me, Mr. Lang," he said, his voice cracking. "Slightly. I have something for you." He placed a USB stick on my desk with the reverence of Simeon delivering evidence to the FBI. No words. Just a knowing smirk that made my stomach twist. "What is this?" I asked, but he was already backing toward the door. "You'll know when you see it." The door clicked shut, leaving me alone with the innocuous piece of plastic that would destroy everything I thought I knew about my life. I should have thrown it away, should have deleted whatever digital poison it contained without looking. But after 13 years of marriage to Jenna, after watching her grow more distant, more secretive, more cruel in her casual dismissals of my existence curiosity. One. I plugged it in, the video file open with the timestamp from last Thursday. The angle suggested a hidden camera, maybe in a bookshelf. The location was immediately recognizable. Jenna's office in the English department, with its pretentious motivational posters and towers of ungrade papers. My wife appeared in frame, but she wasn't alone. Toby Miles sprawled in the chair across from her desk, 18 years old and radiating the kind of cocky confidence that comes from never facing real consequences. He wasn't some in that generic way that made middle-aged women lose their minds square. Jaw, athletic build, a smile that promised trouble. "Did you take care of it?" Jenna asked, her voice carrying that sultry tone I hadn't heard directed at me in years. "Professor Lang." "You worry too much," Toby replied, standing and moving around the desk. "Your husband's not going to figure anything out?" "He's too busy buying Ginvable." They laughed together, and the sound hit me like a physical blow. What followed next made me slam the laptop shut so hard the screen cracked. My hands shook as bile rose in my throat. I stumbled to the small bathroom match to my office and vomited until nothing was left but burning acid. When I returned to my desk, the laptop sat there like an unexploded bomb. I opened it again, steeling myself for what I knew I'd see. The video continued for another 12 minutes. I watched all of it, documenting every touch, every whispered word. Every moment that confirmed what some part of me had suspected for months. When Jenna called Toby her secret weapon, while adjusting her blouse, I felt something fundamental break inside me. The video ended with them discussing Toby's grade in her advanced imposing class. "A plus as promised," Jenna said, her hand trailing down his chest. "You've certainly earned it." I sat in my office until well past 6, staring at the black screen and feeling the careful architecture of my life crumbling around me. 13 years of marriage, 5 years of trying for children that never came, countless faculty dinners where I smiled and nodded while Jenna charmed everyone with her wit and intelligence, never mentioning that her husband existed in any meaningful way. The drive home was a blur of rage and numbness. I found Jenna in our kitchen, grading papers with a glass of wine at her elbow, looking every inch the dedicated professor, beautiful, brilliant, accomplished, and rotten to the core. "How was your day?" she asked without looking up. "Fine." I managed. "Yours?" "The usual student conferences, department meeting, nothing exciting." The lie came so easily, delivered with such casual indifference that I almost admired her skill. Almost. That night I lay awake beside her, listening to her breathe and planning my next move. The old Derek would have confronted her immediately, demanding explanations and probably winding up apologizing for invading her privacy. But that version of me had teed at 3:47 p.m. in my office. The new me understood that information was power, and I barely scratched the surface of what I needed to know. The student information system at Millbrook was laughably insecure, a relic from the early 2000s that ran on the digital equivalent of duct tape and prayer. As an administrator, I had access to academic records, grade histories, and enrollment data going back 15 years. Toby Miles had taken 3 classes with my wife over the past 2 semesters. His grades told an interesting story: D+ in introduction, to literature with Professor Hartwell, C- in creative writing with Professor Chun, and a perfect A in advanced composition with Professor Jenna Wang. That grade changelogs were even more revealing. Toby's initial grade in Jenna's class had been entered as a C+ on May 15th. On May 18th, it was changed to an A, the modification made at 11:23 p.m. using Jenna's faculty login. I cross-referenced the date with our text messages. May 18th was the night Jenna claimed she was working late on departmental reviews. She'd come home after midnight, smelling of wine and making excuses about a faculty dinner that had run long. But the real revelation came when I dug into Toby's disciplinary record. 3 complaints filed against him over the past year. Inappropriate behavior toward female students, suspected cheating on exams, and a hazing incident that had been mysteriously dropped without investigation. Each complaint had been handled by the same administrator, Chairman Walter Bixby. Bixby was old-school academia, the kind of man who still wore tweed jackets unironically and believed tenure made him untouchable. He'd been running the English department for 12 years, long enough to develop the God complex that came with unchecked power over younger faculty members. I'd always found him creepy, the way his eyes lingered too long on female students and colleagues. Now I wondered if Jenna had fallen victim to his particular brand of mentorship, or if she was a willing participant in whatever game they were playing. The next morning, I installed a digital voice recorder in Jenna's office. It took 3 trips to get the timing right, slipping in during lunch breaks and evening hours when the building was mostly empty. The device was smaller than a matchbox and magnetic, designed to stick to the underside of metal filing cabinets without detection. I told myself I was gathering evidence for a divorce lawyer, but deep down, I knew it was more F than that. I wanted to understand the full scope of their betrayal, to map every lie and deception before deciding how to respond. The first few recordings were mundane: student conferences, phone calls with publishers about textbook adoptions, complaints about administrative policies. But on Thursday afternoon, I struck gold. "Walter, it's me." Jenna's voice came through the small speaker in my office as it played back the day's recordings. "We need to talk about the Milo situation." "I told you, that's been handled," came the gruff response, Chairman Bixby on speakerphone. The family received a very generous settlement to keep quiet about last year's incident. "That's not what I'm worried about," Jenna said. "Toby's getting careless. Yesterday, he practically groped me in Tehoe where anyone could see." Bixby chuckled. a sound that made my skin crawl. Young men rarely understand discretion, but he serves his purpose, doesn't he? And his father's donations have been quite helpful for the apartment. His purpose? Janice. Voice sharpened. Walter, I'm not some kind of... Of course not, my dear. You're a brilliant educator who understands that academia requires certain compromises. Just like I understood when you needed help with that plagiarism issue last spring. The line went quiet for several seconds. When Jenna spoke again, her voice was smaller, defeated. That was different, was it? The student had actually plagiarized work, had he? The evidence was rather thin, as I recall. But you needed near, and I needed your cooperation. On the curriculum restructuring, everyone to get what they wanted. And now you continue to be the exceptional professor you've always been. Toby graduates in May. His father writes another check, and we'll move on with our lives. Unless, of course, you'd prefer to explain, Tov. Tenure committee, why you've been altering grades for personal reasons. The conversation ended there, but I sat listening to the silence for several minutes, processing what I'd heard. My wife wasn't just having an affair, she was being blackmailed into it. Viewed instead of sympathy, I felt only cold rage at how easily she'd sacrificed her integrity in our marriage to advance her career. That evening, Jenna came home with flowers and wine, suggesting we have dinner at the Italian place we're wed. Had our first date. She was trying to reconnect, probably feeling guilty about her extracurricular activities. You seem different lately, she said over candlelit pasta, reaching across the table to touch my hand. Distant. Work stress, I replied, letting her fingers intertwine with mine while my mind calculated angles and possibilities. Budget cuts, staff reductions, the usual administrative nightmare. She nodded sympathetically, playing the role of supportive wife with Oscar-worthy conviction. I know I haven't been Theba's partner lately either. The tenure pressure, the committee work, it's been overwhelming. We'll get through it, I said, and meant it, though. Not in the way she imagined. The old Derek would have been grateful for this moment of intimacy, would have convinced himself that whatever problems sexted could be solved through better communication and couples therapy. But new Derek understood that some bridges, once burned, could never be rebuilt. I was done being invisible. It was time to make myself very, very seen.